All right, so I got another update here for you guys on the approximately 978-year-old Senator Dianne Feinstein from California, who, as we've been talking about for months and months now, is essentially completely incapable of doing her job and representing the 40-some-odd million California residents who she was elected to represent. We've had so many different stories that have come out over that time period of her forgetting colleagues' names, who she's known for years, of her not really knowing what position she's going to have on any given bill, and her staffers are essentially reportedly just operating the entirety of her position in Congress right now. So I mean, it's a completely ridiculous situation. Now, first and foremost, obviously you feel for Dianne Feinstein, like on a personal level, because I've had grandparents who have suffered with things like dementia and Alzheimer's, and anytime that you see somebody who starts to go through these kinds of things, it's obviously terrible. It's heartbreaking. You don't want to see anybody going through this on a personal level. But on the other hand, she's a senator, right? So we hold our public officials to a completely different standard, right? If this was some random average American, citizen or something, nobody will be talking about this. But here we have another update. Dianne Feinstein hospitalized after fall in San Francisco home. So they say Senator Dianne Feinstein was forced to the hospital after tripping and falling Tuesday in her hometown of San Francisco, according to her office. They say, quote, Senator Feinstein briefly went to the hospital yesterday afternoon as a precaution after a minor fall in her home. All of her scans were clear and she returned home. So obviously, they're trying to downplay this as much as they possibly can. On the other hand, anybody who has ever had, grandparents who are getting up in age like this, whenever you have a serious fall like this, or even any fall whatsoever, really every single fall that you have at 90 some odd years old is a serious fall in and of itself. But when these kinds of things start happening, she had these other illnesses that she was absent from the Senate for months. She's now fallen and had to go to the hospital to get checked on. Anytime that you have this as somebody is getting up in age, it's not a good sign, and it is a serious thing regardless of how they're trying to downplay it right now, right? But they continue. They say Feinstein, who is 90 years old, was hospitalized earlier this year after a bout with shingles and was absent from the Senate for about 3 months before returning in May. She is the oldest sitting lawmaker in either chamber of commerce. They say during her absence, Feinstein missed dozens of key votes and was blamed by some progressives for slowing the progress of President Biden's controversial picks for federal judgeships through the Senate Judiciary Committee. First of all, Biden is not putting forward controversial picks. It's just that the GOP doesn't want to allow virtually anybody that is not a right-wing hack, judicial official to actually pass through this process. So of course it's going to happen mostly along party lines, but they're acting as if Biden is nominating Marxist judges or something and it's super controversial. It's not. But also the other part of this that's just absolutely amazing is that they frame this as some progressives are blaming her for missing these votes and costing the appointments of these judicial nominees. That's not some progressives are saying that. That's just objective reality. She was gone from her Senate position for 3 months, and during that period, they were not able to progress forward with some of these nominees. That's as simple as it is, right? But of course, here from the New York Post, they're going to run with that framing. Now, they continue here. They say, at times, Feinstein has had public mental lapses and appeared confused in Senate proceedings, drawing scrutiny from observers. At one point, during the Senate Appropriations Committee hearing last month, an aide and one of her colleagues had to prompt her to vote aye on the annual defense spending bill. So I can actually show you guys this video. I didn't get to cover it at the time, but here is the video that they were just referencing there. It is not great, to say the least.
The defense appropriations bill favorably, subject to amendment. The clerk will call the roll.
Senator Feinstein.
Say aye. Pardon me? Aye.
Yeah.
Just say
I would like to support a yes vote on this. It provides $823 billion. That's an increase of $26 billion for the Department of Defense, and it funds priorities submitted.
Yeah, just say aye.
Okay, just
Great,
aye.
I mean, again, it's not fun to watch things like this. I mean, this is honestly very depressing to watch this happen, but I mean, this is not normal, right? I mean, this is one of the most powerful people in the country. She represents the largest state in the country, tens of millions of people who voted for this person. And again, she doesn't know where she is, right? She's lost in the sauce. And meanwhile, she's talking about this massive, historically high defense spending bill, which is getting up close to $1 trillion on an annual basis. And of course, she wants to go into this long speech defending it. So it's not as if she's like good on the policies either, right? I mean, she's terrible on the policies, and clearly also she's just incompetent at this point, right? Now, I mean, that kind of gets into a different conversation about like age limits. A lot of people say, oh, we need to have some sort of like cap at how old you can be when you're in Congress. I don't necessarily agree with that. I think maybe 90 would be a fair one if you had to set one of those caps, but you know, there's nuanced differences between people, and people age very differently, right? Bernard Sanders, you know, he's getting up there in age as well. He seems like he's perfectly cognitively there. Joe Biden, on the other hand, kind of seems like he's had a significant fall off, at least since he was the vice president, and he's getting up there in age. Dianne Feinstein, totally incapacitated, doesn't know where she is, lost in the sauce. So it's different from person to person to person, so I'm not necessarily in favor of having like a hard age cap, but at the same time, there's got to be some procedure that could be done, right? I mean, you could have Democrats, if they actually had the balls to do it, come out and say that she needs to resign. We've had some, like a handful, like Ro Khanna, who's willing to come out and say, yeah, she needs to resign from her position and go ahead and retire, but the Democratic establishment is protecting her, right? They're not even putting this public pressure on her at all. In fact, it seems like behind the scenes even, they're trying to put pressure on her to stay in her seat. And I've said this before, but I don't even think she's at this point mentally capable of understanding what the current situation is and making that decision actively to retire, right? So this has to be done by some sort of other method, right? We have to have some sort of process that could be put in place for a situation where one of the most powerful people in the country doesn't know what the fuck is going on around them, right? But they continue here. They say, the California senator, this is another update I didn't get to cover, right, has also ceded power of attorney to her daughter amid a family struggle over her late husband Richard Blum's estate. Okay, so now she's handing the power of attorney over to her daughter, so she can't handle the financial battle with this, you know, estate that they have within their family, right? But she can somehow represent 40 million people within California. Okay, doesn't seem very reasonable to me, but they continue. They say Feinstein has decided not to vie for re-election, and her term is set to end at the start of 2025. Her departure has triggered a Democratic primary scramble to replace her in what could become one of the most expensive non-presidential elections ever. And of course, the top contenders to replace Feinstein include Democrats, Representative Adam Schiff, Katie Porter, and Barbara Lee. So this is really the sticking point, right? This is why it seems like this is actually taking place here, and why the Democratic establishment is trying to prop up Dianne Feinstein, sweep all of this evidence under the rug that she is incompetent, and trying to keep her in this seat for as long as possible. It's because Gavin Newsom, the governor of California, if Dianne Feinstein was to resign and was to retire from her seat right now, he has already publicly made the commitment that he would appoint, because this is his power as the governor, right? He would appoint a black woman to replace her in her seat, and then that person would end up filling that seat for the remainder of her term, and then you would still go on with the election that's coming up in 2025, right? But the only real candidate that could be put up in that position if she were to retire would be Barbara Lee. And guess what? Barbara Lee is significantly more progressive, right? Not perfect, but significantly to the left of a corporate Democrat, an absolute shill like Adam Schiff. And so the Democratic establishment is basically trying to prop up Dianne Feinstein, I guess, until she like literally drops dead on the Senate floor one of these days, right? They're trying to prop her up in the meantime to stall so that they don't have Barbara Lee be nominated by Gavin Newsom to fill her position in the meantime, thereby giving Adam Schiff a better chance of winning in the next upcoming election. So, I mean, it's completely demented. I mean, no pun intended, but it's completely demented from the Democratic Party to be doing this. Somebody's got to step in. You need more people who actually have the balls to come out and call this situation as it is, from even lower ranking members within the Democratic Party, or we're just going to keep going on like this until, again, something even more tragic happens. So, I mean, there you have it, the latest updates on Dianne Feinstein, and I mean, you gotta retire.
Everyone is saying good Politic guy has the best Politic. Believe me, no one does it like him. Believe me. Everyone is saying